Getting more money to help cope with the soaring consumer prices we are seeing everywhere.
Social Security benefits will rise by 8.7% next year. The remaining beneficiaries are widows, parents, spouses, or children.
And looking at the country as a whole, about 70 million retirees or disabled people, other recipients, will see a boost in their benefits.
There is a new official update on fourth stimulus checks. It's $3,500 in extra relief cash that you were actually eligible for. The 2022 holiday season will be a lean one for people who have enough on their financial plates. And just dealing with skyrocketing inflation alone, it's going to be tough. One option is to cut back on spending, another is to search for financial assistance from the government. So depending on factors like your income and household size, you might qualify for extra stimulus cash to help with bills. Millions of Americans already pay billions of dollars in state and federal taxes every year. So if you're a homeowner or a renter, you may be entitled to get some of the hard-earned money back. The Homeowners Assistance Fund, for example, is part of the American Rescue Plan. It provides up to $10 billion for every state in the country. The program was intended to help Americans avoid foreclosures and the loss of utilities during the crisis, but things have changed. Although the program is federally funded, funds are administered by the states. Residents of Arizona may apply online. You may qualify if you own and live in a home of Arizona as your primary residence, as well as if you experience financial hardship after January 21st, such as lost income or higher expenses due to the crisis. And according to officials, the Federal Homeowner Assistance Fund must be used by September 30th. The Arizona Department of Economic Security administers an emergency rental assistance program. It gives a lot of money to people with rent and utility bills and helps the Arizona renters impacted by the crisis. Now, those meeting eligibility requirements may receive up to $3,500 a month in stimulus cash. That's $3,500 of free stimulus money. The Colorado Department of Local Affairs has already used up its federal emergency rental assistance, and the cities of Boulder, Colorado, and Denver may still have funds available for you to get the money. Now, housing prices have also been on a tear since the crisis began. The underlying reasons for the dramatic rise in the cost of buying is that the nationwide prices are increasing. The further we get from the crisis, funds of some of these programs may become scarce. Now, friends, housing prices have been on a tear, and now the underlying reasons for the dramatic rise in this price is because of the Federal Reserve. Despite the biggest one-day drop since '81, a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage and home loan is still double what it was at the start of the year. The higher interest rate payments coupled with overvalued homes have caused a slump in the sale of existing homes. It's both good and bad news. Housing prices rose by 45% between January and June, and that's because 50% more than the run-up of the last housing market bubble. However, this time it doesn't look like it'll be a repeat of the 2008 housing crash. Mark Zandi, the chief economist, told reporters it doesn't look like he sees a housing collapse anytime soon because home prices will be bolstered by a couple of fundamentals: supply and improved lending practices. Furthermore, unlike the previous housing bust, both bank and household balance sheets are in a better situation because the work-from-home policies that were implemented at the beginning of the crisis allowed the migration of Americans from high-cost areas to lower-cost cities. The ultra-low mortgages already helped encourage this movement in an already limiting supply of available houses. So the increase in prices already slowed, and some of the most overvalued are now being seen as a correction. According to new data, over 90% of regional housing markets have a greater than 50% chance of housing losing value over the next year. Only 1% of the biggest housing markets have seen a drop so far. The rising prices and higher mortgage rates have cooled demand for existing homes, with homeowners priced out, which is behind the deceleration prices. However, the market is still short on supply and likely to remain this way as builders cut back on this. So we're seeing that the need that President Biden doing more for the American people is a must.
Well, I certainly concur with Senator Schumer's in calling for our Republican colleagues to seriously negotiate an appropriations bill for 2023. As it stands, if we have a continuing resolution, it will be a disaster for our military personnel. First, defense spending will be about $62 billion lower than the level set out in our Senate bipartisan NDAA bill. And I'll emphasize bipartisan. In practice, this means the Defense Department will operate with at least $3 billion per month less than the level President Biden requested for fiscal year 2023. and the damage would be compounded significantly by inflation. We put forward in our legislation specific funding to cover the cost of inflation. That would not be at all included in a CR. Now, the people who will really bear the burden of this disastrous mistake of doing a CR are the men and women of the military forces. This CR would delay investment in barracks, infrastructure, child care centers. 97 new projects totaling $5.7 billion would not go forward. And further, the 4.6% pay raise that we've included in the National Defense Authorization Act on the Senate side, that would not be funded because the funds would not be available. Second major issue here is that this would cripple our ability to modernize the forces of our military. Under a CR, there can't be any new starts for acquisition programs or military construction projects. 192 new start efforts in procurement and R&D and 49 procurement rate increases would be prohibited. This was aptly described by General Berger, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. As he said, a CR is the last thing a force seeking to accelerate modernization needs.
What I think are really important issues. I have a great concern that we're heading as a globe spiraling into the greatest food insecurity our planet has ever seen, affecting more people than ever. And obviously, this is an issue for Côte d'Ivoire. And so I would like to know from you, what is the largest impact of the Russians' war in Ukraine on the agricultural sector in the country, and what are some thoughts of yours to help to deal with any food insecurity?
Folks, did you know that you may be eligible to receive up to $1,000 from your state and city? And many of you are wondering how you can claim such additional financial assistance. Well, roughly 7 months have passed since the final enhanced monthly child tax credit payment was dispersed to families in the US. Now, since the checks ended, the number of children in poverty has increased from 12% to 17%. It has put 3.7 million children below the poverty line. Millions of parents welcomed these payments in the latter half of 2021 as they help provide financial relief during the crisis. This year, with inflation on the rise and a possible recession looming, several states are now planning to send families more money to lessen the impact. There's a new Republican Senate proposal that would send up to $350 per child and includes a work requirement. For now, it's up to the states to decide if they'll provide money to families in need. And so far, there are several states planning to enact a state child tax credit on offering deductions for households with children. Only one of those states is pending governor approval. Families in California who earn less